Fame on my mind.
Here's a classic clip from OutKick.
We got this panty-waist loser in Connecticut who's sitting around lying about being in Vietnam and who now feels like he needs to weigh in on whether we should be back in school. I'm sorry, I am fed the F up with these losers.
That was from the OutKick Hall of Fame.
Dang, Clay, it's rare that we have an instant Hall of Fame moment on the show.
Well, you know, there's so much stupidity out there. I'm just fired up. This is the Geico OutKick Studios. I mean, if Eddie had not given that update, it's not like we script a ton of the show. Like, there are some people out there who come in and they're like, in segment 1, we're going to do this. Like, literally, you know this, but a lot of the people on the show don't. I sit down, put on my headset because you guys don't get into your seat until a couple of minutes before the show. And I usually say to you, hey, what do you think the open should be, right? And I'll be like, I'm thinking X. You might say Y, and then I just go. And you know, because you've seen me in studio before, I also don't come in with a single note, usually. Sometimes I take pictures of stats that I want to get right, and I have them on my phone, so I'll pull them up, Cam Newton stats or something like that. But I try to be free-flowing on the show where we can adjust on the fly. So it's not like I was presuming that I would go off on anybody like that to start the show. But when I see the Blumenthal idiot, and I remember, and he's deciding he needs to weigh in on college sports, I can't handle it. So anyway, Blumenthal's dead. I killed him. If he ever came on this show, I'm not even kidding. If he ever came on this show, I think by the end of the show, his political career would be over. I think that's what would happen if he came on and he was interviewed by me. So, and I think, by the way, media should go after losers like this more often. There's a lot of people out there who are like bunny rabbits in the media. I don't care about most opinions, but when you lie about serving in Vietnam and then you're in the United States Senate and you're one of the 100 highest elected officials in the land, that is unacceptable to me. Shannon Spake, did you serve in Vietnam? Did you serve in the? Were you in the Revolutionary War? Did you sew the first American flag alongside of Betsy Ross?
I have a lot of family members who served in the war. My dad and my grandfather.
You're World War II. Your grandfather fought in World War II. When you hear somebody lie about serving in a war, that's just like unacceptable to me. I don't understand how you could ever be elected after that.
Yeah, my dad was in Vietnam as well, so I could go grab his flight suit and I could put it on and I could take a picture and tell you that I was, I flew F-4s in Vietnam as well. Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I feel like, listen, we're all held accountable. We can't lie about stuff at all, right? I mean, you can't lie on your resume. You can't lie on different types of things. Yeah, that's a big one, Clay. That's a big one.
And my thing is, my thing is, like, I have been to Connecticut once in my life. I went with my college roommate, and he lived in Hartford, Connecticut, South Windsor. And I remember going to go visit him at his house, right? Very well. And I bring that up because the only other time I was going to be in Connecticut, I was supposed to be at his wedding, and I got stuck in Baltimore, couldn't get connected to a flight in Hartford, spent the entire day in Baltimore when they shut down the D.C. area, and then turned around and flew back. My point on that is I can very well remember the 2 times that I would have been in Connecticut in my entire life. If you ever went to Vietnam,
yeah, you probably would remember.
Yeah, not even thinking about walking through a jungle getting shot at, which I imagine imprints pretty well in your mind, or flying a plane like your dad did, or flying helicopters like my uncle did. You remember pretty well the experience. Like, this is such an impossible thing to lie about that it's unacceptable to me that you could ever elect anybody to office who lied about something that significant.
I just am glad that I learned a new word this morning, ignoramus. I've actually never heard that word before.
You never heard? It's a great word.
I looked it up, and it's an actual word.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is part of my vocabulary moving forward. How many cups of coffee have you had this morning?
0.
Claire?
I'm not a coffee guy.
Oh.
I will say this.
You go on that vacation, and just like everything just builds up, and you come back.
I have never had a cup of coffee in my life, although unlike Senator Blumenthal, I can manage to remember that. Also,
how have you never had a cup of coffee in your life?
There's
Ever?
several things that I've never done. I've never had a cup of coffee. I have never
boiled an egg.
Never boiled water.
Right. Oh, boiled water. That's what
And
it is.
I have never purchased an iTunes.
I can understand the iTunes thing, the coffee and the water. I find hard to believe. And you don't eat yogurt. See, our relationship is growing every day.
The only time so when I put my phone into charge in my wife's car, which automatically starts to play whatever is downloaded on your phone, I have the U2, that everybody got. Like U2 gave everybody free back in the day on Apple. It's the only thing that my phone, music-wise, has ever downloaded.
You're missing out, man. There's a lot of songs out there you could be downloading, and boiling water is a skill that most people don't know how to do properly. So I think you need to get after it.
My 5-year-old is like, Dad, the other day he said, Dad, can you make cereal? And I was like, I think I will make breakfast every now and then because usually they eat while I'm on the air. So my wife is usually making breakfast for them. But the other day he slept in till 8 o'clock my time, Central Time. And so I was like, Dad's in charge of breakfast today. All right, what do you want? And he said, Dad, totally serious. Can you make cereal? And I was like, I think Dad can pull it off.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm not the chef of my family. I don't cook. I open the wine and that's it. My husband cooks. He enjoys it and he's teaching my kids, thankfully, how to do it. But I'm not. I can make spaghetti and I can do some eggs and stuff like that, but not much. So I'm with you on that for sure.
All right. So positives. All right. Let's go to positive. Well, actually, can you come back and finish the hour because I've managed to get us into a rant where the whole. Can you close out the hour with us? Shannon Spake is with us. All right, Shannon. Let's go to actual sports. I didn't really understand what happened with Jimmy Johnson, but it is an interesting story. He tested positive for the coronavirus and then quickly tested not positive, and he's now racing this weekend, right? Tell me what happened and what was the time frame of this.
Yeah, so last week they announced that he tested positive after his wife had tested positive. So his wife, I guess, was dealing with some kind of allergy symptoms is what Jimmy described it like, and they're out at their home in Colorado. And so she went to the doctor. She tested positive. He tested positive. They took him out of the race car, but now he's tested negative 2 tests in a row, both Monday and Tuesday. That was the only way that he'd be cleared to get back in the car. We're going to try to catch up with him this weekend on the pre-race show. But yeah, it's strange, right? Because he tested positive and then quickly tested negative. So either they were on the back end, he was asymptomatic, so had 0 symptoms. But again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how this whole thing goes down, but it happened very, very quickly. And obviously, we're just happy that he and his family are safe. He did say, Clay, it's crazy, right? So one of the things he said was when both he and his wife tested positive, they have 2 young girls. So they didn't have any family or friends out there with them in Colorado. And obviously, they can't have people come into the house if both of them are tested positive. So the way that Jimmy sort of made it seem was that they were kind of parenting through walls with their daughters because they were both negative. And so they said it was a really scary time trying to obviously let their children know that they're going to be okay, but not wanting their children to contract what they have as well, having to make meals and do all these things through sort of walls with their children. That's, I think, for me personally, one of the reasons when I think about, the fear that I have of this virus, it's that, right? It's having to then be in this house with my children in this house and my husband, and how do you deal with all of that? So, so thankfully he's negative now.
It is interesting because the PGA also had a golfer, and I'm forgetting his name, test positive, and then almost immediately end up testing negative as well. And the reason I would point to this story is it's possible. Initially people were like, oh, it takes 2 weeks whenever you test positive. Mm-hmm. There are now a couple of stories, one from the PGA and one from NASCAR, where guys have tested positive and then tested negative a couple of days later, and they're not even hardly missing very much of their sport.
We're still learning so much about this. And, I've heard you all morning long talking about schools, and you and I have had these conversations so many times about COVID-19. And I think that the kids should be back in school. Listen, I'm one of those people that I try to do my life a little bit. I try to have some sort of normalcy, whether it be having interaction with my neighbors on 4th of July or this or that. And then, the next day I'm like, oh, should we have done that? And I start to get nervous. So I go back and forth between this. I'm sort of trying to get back to normal, but I definitely think when you look at the kids being home and not getting these formative years at school, I think it's important to get them back in school.
Well, and our kids are fortunate comparatively, right? Because you can work from home. If you have a job where you can work from home, you can be around them. You have, I'm assuming in your house, reliable Wi-Fi, plenty of food, the shelter situation. Your kids are not in an abusive sort of environment. And same thing is true for my kids. Like, school is so massively important for so many kids out there. And it particularly is important for kids that don't have the advantages. Because, to me, it's just like you're creating a gap for elementary school kids of effectively 2 years now if kids aren't back in school, because you can say, oh, they can sit down in front of a computer and they can learn it. The reality is they can't, right? Like, it's nowhere near the same. You don't get the same social skills. I've got a rising kindergartner, for instance. Kindergarten, you're not going to kindergarten because you're suddenly going to be brilliant in terms of the academics you learn. So much of elementary school is just learning how to socialize with other kids and being around them and learning how to, listen to instruction and learn all of those important details. And there are so many kids that are falling behind in a massive way. Keeping them out of school when the data all reflects that they're not in substantial danger is, to me, just allowing the fear porn to win.
Yeah, I listen, again, you and I've told you how I feel about the whole thing. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're moving in the right direction. I still am a little bit, I wear a mask. I watch where my kids are going to go. They were in a camp this week that I didn't feel like the safety precautions were up to my standards right now, right? They've been a couple camps. They take their temperatures. The camps are limited, all of those things, which is that makes me feel a little safer, right? I'm not worried about them, but I am worried about them kind of bringing it back. And then again, if they bring it back, what happens then to the sort of the nucleus of my family if it's disrupted because of this? And so they were in a camp this week, and I just didn't think it was up to par. They were there. It was sort of an outdoor camp, and there were people that were coming into the space from outside, other places, states, whatever, because it's sort of like it's like a national, a park kind of thing here in the area. So my kids are standing in line with people that they don't know where they're from. Those people aren't wearing masks. And so I personally made the decision to bring my kids home and not to have them exposed to that. But I am trying to get back to some sort of normal play, right? I'm not going and eating dinner at restaurants just yet, but I am interacting with other human beings, which is what we weren't doing for so long.
All right. On the NASCAR front.
Yeah.
What do you what's going on in NASCAR now? It seems like, the Bubba Wallace controversy has been this huge mushroom cloud that's kind of taken over. The positive is, by and large, it seems like they've handled the coronavirus fairly well in NASCAR.
They have, I think, because obviously, with Jimmy testing positive, the other, I guess, the crew guys that were around Jimmy, they all tested negative. And so, like we said, right, it's all about moving forward, Clay. Can we do this and move forward? And I believe that not only NASCAR, but obviously what the NBA is doing right now, Major League Baseball, they are setting the stage for what we're going to do in the spring, whether it be college football or NFL. I think they're proving that, someone can test positive in this sort of space, and it's okay. We're going to keep going. We're not going to shut everything down like we did in the past. But yeah, there's been, goodness gracious, since we came back, NASCAR, there's been more sort of
We've talked about NASCAR more on this show than ever before.
This was the perfect time for me to start coming on your show
Yes.
as a regular contributor because, my goodness, we've had stuff to talk about, every single week. And I know the Bubba Wallace topic was something that was covered just, across the board, not only on your show, but everywhere else. And certainly that's sort of, there's been some, this past week, President Trump tweeted about Bubba, so we discussed that a little bit. But yes, there's been a lot of stuff going on in NASCAR. Again, the ratings, listen, people can say the ratings are up because nothing else is on. Sure, that's an argument, right? But I do think we're getting a lot more eyes on us because of the way that we're moving forward, whether it be with the social stuff or with the COVID-19 stuff. And I think it's moving in the right direction.
Good stuff, as always. Shannon Spake, thank you for being flexible time-wise. Thanks for hanging out with us.
All right. Good to see you back.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. When we come back, we will dive into a couple of the big stories out there. MLS is back. Also, I've made a decision in my household that is not necessarily one that I wanted to make. I will explain and I'll get your advice. All that still to come. This is OutKick on Fox Sports Radio, and I did my tease too fast. So this is OutKick on Fox Sports Radio.